In this video, I'm going to talk about stiffness in the right arm, in the bow arm, specifically in the wrist and fingers. And if you're a beginning player, you may not even know that you have stiffness in your wrist, but if you are experiencing problems keeping a straight bow, or if you hear that sometimes your tone is shaky, it's not really pure and deep, you know something is up, likely you have tension in your wrist and or fingers. Now, I do think that they are both connected. I think if you have tension in your wrist, then likely it's because your fingers are stiff, and then vice versa. And you can just do this quick demo for yourself, and you can just feel how they are connected. So just tighten your fingers as if you're holding a bow, tighten that. You can feel immediately in your wrist. You can feel things tighten through here, and then just try not to move your wrist. Just hold it, keep it really rigid, and you're gonna feel your fingers want to tighten as well. So, you've heard many times, I'm sure, in other videos that, the bow arm needs to be relaxed, that you allow for the weight of the arm into the strings. That's a real common phrase we teachers use, but it's easy to hear that and intellectually grasp it and harder to do. But generally speaking, we learn once we sort of understand certain concepts. So I'm doing another little demo, and you can do this too. So use your left arm as the base, and let's get our bow holds ready. So just elevate your arm. Now, if you can let your wrist be floppy like this, then really you have no issues with tension. You might be an older beginner and feel like, loose joints are a thing of the past. But if you can bend your fingers and you can let your wrist dangle like this, then you're fine. So the only tension in the arm at all really is just what we need in the shoulder to hold the arm up. So it's sort of a contradiction. Allow the weight of the arm to sink into the strings, yet we have to support our arm and we have to support the bow. So there is some necessary tension to begin with. We just want to make sure that it's just in certain spots. So really this muscle here, okay, this is the one you need to keep the arm elevated. And it's very different. We don't want to raise the shoulder like this, so we just lift the arm from the elbow and it just elevates our arm. Okay, so let your wrist angle like this and hold your arm out and just start to drop your arm. And fingers hit first. So as soon as the fingers hit, there's no tension. The fingers start to bend and then the wrist starts to lower as you let the arm sink further and further down, okay? So do that again. Now, if your fingers are stiff, okay, and you do this, it's going to be really hard to let your wrist come down. The wrist doesn't want to bend if you do this. It wants to, create this steel support here, but if you let your fingers then relax, allow them to bend, then everything will bend as well. Okay, now take this one little step further, rotate in as if you're holding a bow, and do it like this. So imagine a little bit of a bow grip, fingers hit first. Now, start to really notice in these knuckle lines. See what happens here in this knuckle line and in this knuckle line. This is quite crucial, okay, to having a super fluid, relaxed bow hand, that these knuckles here are flexible. So you can see the fingers come up like this, and then the wrist comes down, okay? So I'm turned like this. Now my wrist is going on this diagonal that we have maintained when we're playing. Okay, now get some kind of a pencil or writing utensil. Okay, and just do the same thing. That's going to feel it's going to be a little harder because now that thumb is now engaged holding the pen or the pencil, but you can still see as soon as it gets down, the fingers bend, the wrist comes down, and it lowers here from the shoulder too. So this is how that weight now is going to transfer into the bow, which is then going to transfer into the string. And just feel that your arm, feel some weight, submerging into, your other arm. Now keep your fingers straight. Try to do this with straight fingers. It's not gonna happen, okay? So now let's do this with the violin and the bow. So same concept. You can even still use your left hand as a support, so hopefully you're well supported here. Hold out your left hand, put your bow on the string, and then be suspended. Bring your elbow up so you're at least on the D string level. And then just allow that weight, kind of do what you were doing. See that your knuckles are moving, your fingers are bending, and your wrist is lowering. It's going to be a little different because now you have this bow in the way, and the frog kind of puts a little barrier there with the thumb, but you'll feel the concept. Okay, so now when you make these bows, what I want you to do is add this visual. As you're going up bow, imagine that that strings, just like a puppet, like a marionette, are attached to your wrist, elbow, and your hand, not your shoulder, okay? Because the string that elevates the elbow will bring your arm up, okay? And as you play up bow, imagine these strings are lifting the bow arm higher, and the string right here that pulls up the wrist elevates the wrist. You'll want to tilt the bow away from you as you get to the frog. That also helps bring the wrist up. Okay, and now imagine that the strings are all cut, and this very floppy puppet arm that does not have a will of its own. It's just dependent on the laws of gravity, and it's just going to now sink up, down. Okay, and do that a bunch, and start to feel and hear what happens to your sound. Now, back to the bowing straight. Okay, this has implications for our straight bowing. So as we come up now, players with stiffness here often experience this. The bow gets off track here because there's no flexibility in the wrist. Again, if the fingers are tight, it's not going to be able to do that very easily. So when you get to this point, again, watch. Loose here, imagine the string, and then keep the bow on track. So just isolate these kinds of things, just work on that, and I know that you're going to hear immediate improvement in your tone, as well as you're going to be able to keep the bow moving straighter, and all will be better.